Welcome to the Sur-thrival Guide podcast, a short series of daily impactful episodes full of ideas and tips on how to thrive in survival mode during the corona crisis. Every weekday, with the help of a special guest expert, we'll be exploring different tools to add to your Sur-thrival toolkit. So strap yourselves in and get ready to be inspired as we show you the way to Sur-thrival. Hi there everyone, so great for you to join us here on the Sur-thrival Guide podcast. I'm Mark Stabina, former professional rugby player and now leadership consultant with Winning EQ. What does that mean? Well, basically I help individuals and teams achieve excellence in sports, business, and just life in general, which is also why I created the Sur-thrival Guide ebook, which if you haven't downloaded your copy, do it immediately. It's free. Why wouldn't you? Go to winningeq.com or click the link below in the episode notes. So this podcast is a way to bring that ebook to life, and with the help of some special guest experts on the chosen topic. And today's topic is, in my opinion, one of the three main pillars of health and wellness. One being quality sleep or rest and recovery. Another one being exercise or body movement. And of course, the third one being our topic today is nutrition. Now, we not only have a nutrition expert with us today, but we have an Olympic champion. That's right, you heard me correctly. We have an Olympic champion with us today to talk about nutrition. Anita Nall Richesson is a gold, silver, and bronze medal winner in the 1992 Olympics for swimming. Breaststroke is her event. And she was 16 years of age. I just want to add that as well. She also was a world record holder at 15 years of age. I'll let her talk about that a little bit more. It gives me great pleasure and excitement to welcome today Anita Nall Richesson. Anita, you could be doing anything right now and you chose to be here with us. What can I say? Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. I find this to be very fun and exciting, so thank you.
It is fun, and I love the background too. We chatted about it before. I think it's perfect for what we're talking about. Just
really having fun with these backgrounds with my kids. My kids taught me how, so now I can do it.
Do you have another one that you could kind of flip between, or would it mess things up? I'm curious to see what other backgrounds you might.
Oh no, whenever I talk with my athletes, I have my athlete program.
Like it.
And then I tried this one day, but it was two of me.
Yeah, I don't know where to look. I'm like, move out of the way. I'm trying to look at it.
I know it. There's my other one. It's a little too bright though, so I kind of toned it down with this one.
Okay, I like that. Let's settle with that one. It looks great. Now, Anita, I gave just a quick intro and a taste of your background, but for our audience, could you just expand a little bit on your journey from Olympic athlete and now to nutrition expert?
Yes, sure. Well, have you ever had anyone tell you before that you should do for a living that what you give away for free? Have you ever heard, you've heard that saying before. So I had that epiphany when I was in my, probably my early 20s. I was really into nutrition, and anytime I was talking to a relative or anybody, I was always talking about food. And I had a friend who was like, should I pay you for this consult? And I thought, well, I don't know. And it was the first time I realized how into food and wellness that I was. But it started actually much before that. When I was 15, I was a world record holder, like you had said, and I was on top of my game. I was emerging as the what I thought at that time would be for years as the champion of the United States, from the United States, in breaststroke, my stroke. And 1 year later, I was at the Olympic Games. I won 3 medals. And then 1 year after that, I could hardly get out of bed because I was sick so frequently and I was tired all the time. I ended up being labeled with chronic fatigue syndrome. That's what it was called at that time. But through a series of weeding out what was going on with me and what wasn't, I ended up many years later figuring out I had a lot of food issues. And I was really in my programs, I like to call it getting fueled and nourished. So, when we do this old calorie counting thing, we're just talking about fueling our bodies. But what I teach is about getting fueled and nourished, which is different. Nourishing the cells and fueling the body are two different things. And a Snickers will fuel you, but it certainly won't nourish you. So I just was on a quest when I was getting myself out of this hole of illness for many years to figure out how to get fueled and nourished and figure out how my body best worked. And then I eventually went back to school and went into holistic nutrition and wellness.
Thank you. And you said through those struggles, I mean, that's a great way to use your story and your experience and overcoming that to relate to people. It's hard to relate to an Olympic champion. That's, let's be honest here. So for someone to hear that, no, I had my own struggles and they were food related, then that can help sort of have other people relate to their struggles and then respect that you brought yourself out of that. So that's brilliant. You help thousands of people now through your programs. You mentioned already the athletes program, and you also have a teenage athletes program as well.
Yes. So the athletes I work one-on-one with elite athletes. I usually take on 2 or 3 of those a year as individual cases,
Oh, wow.
but those take a lot of, I can't do a ton of those at one time. And then I have my online programs, which I have I would call it a more mature adult, weight loss centered program. And then I have a teen athlete program for groups or just individual athletes looking to really take their skill set to another level.
Brilliant. Now, listen, Anita, we are filming this in the middle of a global viral pandemic, so I think it's unavoidable to talk about that for a second. And let's if you could give the audience an idea of a typical day in lockdown or quarantine, whatever you want to call it, for Anita Nall Richesson.
Yeah, sure. So for us, I knew at the beginning it was going to be imperative that we figure out some schedules for ourselves, our family. I have 2 kids and a husband, so there's 4 of us and 2 dogs in the house, little French bulldogs. So I had to figure out some kind of something we could commit to. And we know that from research that human beings in general prefer DNA, genetically speaking, and this has not changed over time. We prefer to have a cycle of the day that ebbs and flows with the rising and setting of the sun. And we know this from our experience and also from research. So I knew, just doing what I do in my work, I knew how important it would be for us to maintain some form of schedules. And so even though our time frames have shifted in our house a little bit, we're going to bed a little bit later than we typically would. We are getting up a little bit later, but that's because the kids don't have to jump up and go to school, and we don't have to do all that in the morning. But so for us, a typical day would look like waking up around 8:30, 8 or 8:30. We've been going till. Then I make a giant breakfast. So my husband and my kids, they all love my breakfasts. And so I do like a giant breakfast, and then we kind of talk about the day. So at that point, we talk about the day and figure out everybody's eating schedule for the rest of the day, their football schedule, their soccer, whatever everybody's got to do. And so then we kind of base it upon that. But the big meal for us is breakfast, sitting down together, eating together. We eat a lot of our meals together, especially now that we're home more. But breakfast has been it's been fun to shift to having breakfast be the main thing for us. And then we go about, and I go to work a little bit after that. I get on my computer, or I talk to people or do groups, do emails. Husband does a little bit of work. Kids go do their schoolwork. And then they do their sports and lifting and all this other stuff. We have we transformed our garage into a weight lifting room. So that's been pretty fun and new for us. So everybody's been enjoying that. We have some other kids that have been coming over and using it here and there too.
You probably should mention what your husband does as well for a living, yeah. Luke, right? So I'm sure he was the catalyst for turning that into a strength and conditioning center.
Yes. So my husband he was in the private sector for training for many years and trained a lot of elite athletes there. And then he went into the NFL for 10 years. And then we made a decision as a family after 10 years for him being in that we would commit to just to him coming out of the NFL, and financially we would figure out what we needed to do to have him at home with us more, especially with the kids doing high school sports. And he didn't want to miss out. So he's home with us more. And he now is the head strength coach and they call him performance director at the high school that the kids go to.
So cool. So fun, and that must be refreshing for him as well. I mean, one would consider that's kind of taking a step back from high level, high pressured, elite professional sport to it could just be a way to renew some love for the game and what he does, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. He works with teenage boys. He mostly does the football training. He doesn't do the other sports, but he just loves it. To be a part of our boys training. And he always said, he couldn't see it any other way. He said, I've trained JJ Watt, I've trained DeMarcus Ware, I've trained, Peyton Manning. And I can't imagine having trained these guys, but not my own kids. And so who happened to be athletes also. So it was just something that we decided to make happen for our family and make some choices based on that would make it work for us.
Great. Yeah. You mentioned before, I mean, you seem to have it all figured out, but it sounds like a pretty hectic day managing a family and running everyone's affairs. There's probably a lot of people listening or watching right now that find themselves with their kids at home all of a sudden, and their work and their husband or their wives' work, and trying to manage that, which is now looks different because of the pandemic. Do you get some time to yourself? And if so, how do you do that?
Oh man, I was thinking about this the other day, how I don't know how I would have been if my kids were toddlers during this time. I would have to get outside with them and get them to a park or at least an open space or something, whatever. I don't know what the rules are in your area, but I just couldn't imagine having little ones cooped up in a home, especially if you were in a small area. That's been the challenge for us is we are, because of our choices, we have a quite a smaller house than we've ever had. And we've been jammed up in here, and that would be, you had asked, when you sent me some questions, I was thinking, what would be the hardest part of this? And for us, it's been the small home, and we don't have that space to go to. But back to your question on getting time to myself. Yes, as soon as the breakfast is done and we have that wonderful time together and that nourishing meal, then I usually head up to whether I need to, if I'm going to meditate or if I'm going to, we have a red light machine, that gives that really healing red light. And so sometimes I get on that. I also like to rollerblade. So I make sure I take time to get outside in fresh air and rollerblade at least 4 times a week. Mm-hmm. So I try and just grab those types of moments for myself.
You got it.
Yes,
obviously
it's essential. And maybe I could show you right now too this, since we're talking about routines and how imperative it is. I'm going to do a little screen share here. Every year when I do corporate wellness, I create a new exercise or presentation for my corporate wellness clients. And this year it was all about an optimal day of wellness. And so there's some things I just thought this would be really pertinent right now. Also, I have it staged in 3 phases of an optimal day of wellness. In the morning is a time to generate and create, because we usually have our most highest energy, and creative energy is usually available most to us in the morning times.
Yeah.
And then, and the how that I do that or suggest doing that is what I call mindset, movement, and fuel. So that could be of course, fuel's in there. That could be in many different ways that you can get those things accomplished. And then daytime is a time for fueling and moving. So you don't want to get stuck in your day in the afternoon. You don't want to get stuck and I have to remind myself this because I can easily sit at my desk and just get stuck here working on something. And I have to kind of, setting alarms is really something on my phone that helps me a lot. So that's imperative for me, is getting some kind of movement in the day. And that's where I've been getting out and doing some of my little rollerblading. And then evening is a time for restoration and revitalization. So, and I say this, like I say, these are times like this. I mean, we just know that this is how the body's natural rhythm works. And so some people can, for revitalizing, some people are social and need that social time. And so unfortunately now we've had to get creative with that and get on the Zooms and make sure you're being in touch with the people that nourish you and build you up. So, and keeping those connections alive. For me, it's more of the unselfish care is really important. So that might be for me just doing a facial or something that gives back to myself from a long day. And then something I call sleep sense. But I thought maybe I'd just show, just to give you an idea of the morning. So remember, we're in the generate and create mindset, movement, and fuel. So here's just a few ideas for setting your morning mindset. This is just a few ideas. For some people, it works with prayer. Some people, it's meditation, journal writing, visualization, intention setting, and motivational reading. So I have clients go through and pick out what feels right to them. And this is all about, there is not one way here to do this. These are suggestions and ideas that we see work with people over time so that you can choose. And I'm all about feel. So like if you don't want to sit and write in a journal, don't do it. There's not one right way. And then there's getting some form of morning movement, even if that's just a quick stretch. Walking your dogs is a great way to get fresh air and get in some movement at the same time. And then a lot of my clients have, especially my wellness clients, not my teenage athletes, but they love those Pelotons. That seems to be really the thing. Yeah. So that's why I put cycling session in there. And then this is something that I can really give you to take with you. So I always say to choose the best form of morning fueling for yourself. So we have so many people that come in with questions like, well, should I be fasting? Should I do keto? Should I, these are all common questions and concerns about dietary choices. And again, the first thing I go back to is what feels right for you. You've got to get a close connection with yourself to understand what feels right. But that also may take some experimentation and exploration. So I give you 3 options. So you can have, maybe you've heard of bulletproof coffee. Awesome. I'm sure you have. You're out in California. So that's an option. I call it Champion Power Coffee, and this is my version of it, which is dairy-free. And then we have power smoothies that we create on my programs. And then I call Breakfast of Champions, which is more of like what I've been making for my family, like a legitimate, real deal, full-blown breakfast. So these are some ways that you can combat the doldrums of this situation that you might be feeling, is to really just create this type of scheduling for yourself. And I can give you the morning creation deal, and you can put this up for people or whatever you think is best. And
thank you.
Yeah. Just, I know it's something that helps a lot of my clients, and thought it would be nice to share.
Well, I think that's perfect. You echoed the words and actually went into more detail in what I talk about in the book, in my ebook, because I talk about a morning ritual and some examples of the morning ritual to set up your day for a win, right? So getting started and in different, you've got to look at the physical, the mental, and the emotional. What can kickstart those systems and continue. And my next question, I think you answered for the most part as well, was talking about some of the common situations that people are finding themselves in. And we talked, and scheduling is really important, that now they don't have those triggers necessarily by, okay, I know I go to work and there's distinct times at work where there's breaks. Leaving for work happens at the same time every day for a lot of people, coming home from work, and their day is essentially broken up already, and they can form their habits around that. Now, a lot of people just, there's no edge, the edges are blurred. So it's very easy and difficult to separate work and life in order to do that. So people can find themselves neglecting. And that's one of the questions I had. What do you see, apart from some of the challenges you just spoke into, nutrition-wise? So what are some of the challenges that your clients are facing with this new situation, or just in general, with now working from home, or what's going on, the grocery shopping situation that you have had to coach people on in nutrition?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed in the grocery situation is that vegetables have become a little bit scarce. I can't even, I just thought at the beginning, well, I'll stock up on some frozen stuff just to have stuff to be sure if I can't get out. And what I come to find is that the frozen aisles have been
Decimate.
decimated here. Is it the same out there?
The frozen for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and then I go to fresh is always best in my opinion, but I've noticed that we're not getting in quite as fresh stuff. So then frozen's next. So that's one of the biggest.
People are thinking, I don't want to come back to the grocery store for another month if I can help it. So therefore, I know that the fresh foods are going to last less than a week. I want stuff that's going to get me through for the month. So and the canned vegetables as well is quite low sometimes.
So that's something I'm seeing for sure has been a challenge, is trying to get your vegetable intake in. And one of the biggest things, I'm a big Whole Foods proponent, big fan of Whole Foods. That's really what all my programs are about, is getting people back to real whole foods. And so vegetables are a big part of it. So that's been a little bit tricky, and we've just had to navigate that however we can. And everybody's been different. The other big thing that I want to talk about that I'm seeing too is a lot of drinking, a lot of alcohol consumption. It's concerning me. I almost feel like people are using this as an excuse for all like everyday happy hour situations, to get on a virtual happy hour. And that's just, you just want to be aware if that's a habit that you've fallen into, then maybe just be aware that you might want to get yourself out of that, because it's just not going to pan out. It's not going to be the best space for you. You're not going to wake up feeling your best. It can end up being sort of one of those downward spiral kind of deals. Yeah. Well, you wake up and you feel hungover a little bit, or you're dehydrated. Now you're behind the 8 ball. Maybe you get up a little bit later than you've intended to. So, there's all these pieces that can come from that. And then also beginning that as a habit, just be aware of it. I've noticed this with a lot of people on the internet, friends and family members.
So while you're talking about that, what do you recommend everyone's different, everyone has different tolerance levels, but from your standpoint, what would be an acceptable or safe, I'm not sure the word to use here, but an acceptable amount of alcohol? You say just watch that, notice that. Can you give us an amount that people can kind of like use as their baseline?
Yeah, this is always a tough one for me, because we know that alcohol is a poison. We know that it's not conducive to mental, being your mental acuity, mental sharpness. And just general health. But then there's the piece of, well, it's also can help calm nerves and reduce stress to some degree at okay amounts. And I don't know what that is. I really, for me, I don't drink frequently. Just not because I don't like it. I just don't feel good when I do. I feel great when I'm having a few drinks, but I don't ever feel good the next day, no matter if I have 1 or 2 or 10. So this doesn't matter for me. So
I think for me, if I can just add to that, I think the key for me, it is hard, but if people can just check in with what is their intention of having that alcohol, and really get honest with yourself. If it's like, all right, I just needed to relax, it's like, okay, so why? What are your emotions coming up right now? Because then it starts to become medication for whatever issue is happening, right? So it's important just to check in with, am I having a drink because I'm enjoying family time and we're having a glass of wine with dinner and it tastes really good with this steak? Or is it, all right, I've had one to relax, now I'm going for a second one. Am I doing that because I'm miserable right now? Or just check in with yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely, Mark. Great point. We don't ever want to use it to take the place of dealing with emotional stressors or any emotions that are popping up that are uncomfortable that you might not want to deal with. And I can't say enough about dealing with unexpressed emotions and how that can create disease within the body. That I have one of my very dear friends does a modality called the emotion code, and I've learned so much about not dealing with emotions. And I did that a lot in my own career as swimming, as a young person in swimming, and dealing with the disappointment of not making, I wanted to make, sequential Olympics and I only made one. And so it was like, I had a lot of stuff from that and never dealt with it until I was in my 40s. So it's always best to deal with those things right here, right now, in person, and just kind of get through emotions and deal with them presently rather than suppressing or medicating.
I almost want to just dive into that too, but like, that's going to take us off the nutrition part. But it's all related. I mean, I think perhaps there could be a part two to this, and we tackle that, or maybe a different platform, because yeah, you and I that's how we met. We met as mental health advocates. Eric Hewson was on the show on an earlier episode talking about mental health and dealing with anxiety, because that's what this situation has heightened for everyone, right? It's just uncertainty, and now we're getting anxious about everybody else getting anxious. So but that's where I like to say, okay, so that is what's happening, but how can we look at the opportunity here with the extra time perhaps that some of you have, and that's some of you. There's people on the front line that have less time than they've ever had, and we commend them. But for the majority, people are finding themselves the extra time to reflect inward and what am I not dealing with? And we talked about alcohol. That could be a good way to look at it. But back to food. Oh, sorry, you were going to say. Go on.
Well, you hit the nail on the head too. I had taken a couple notes, and I remember I wrote too about a few other things that are challenging right now. And one of the other things was late night TV watching and snacking that goes with that. Just speaking about nutrition in particular.
Yes.
So I've gotten into a few series, and because of the way that they create those, you know how it goes, the end of one and you're like, oh, just one more. Yeah. So you've got to like really be strong to cut yourself off and go, nope. And just, that's all I can say is at that time, just create that schedule and stick to it. Honor what you've set for yourself. If you said that you were done at 10, shut it down and know that series isn't going anywhere. Tomorrow it's going to be right back.
Well, just on that, I want to expand a little bit on that too. I put that snacking could perhaps fall. We talked about alcohol. What about comfort eating? So we're medicating with alcohol. What about people medicate with food as well? What can you say about that, Anita?
Yes, that is. I have found more times, and in fact, I just did a webinar before this one with a group of young athletes, and one of the youngsters asked in the chat, what do I do for eating because I'm bored? So that's another thing. And it also, because they're young, they may also be feeling anxiety and eating to quell anxious feelings of unknown times. And so we all know that the biggest key to transforming any habit is awareness, and that's the first step. And if you're eating unaware eating, it's going to be difficult to break that if you're not even aware you're doing it. So we've just got to get aware of what we're doing, number one, and then you've got to set up something to cut you off at the pass. And for me, that's not buying chocolate chip cookies. It's not buying the bag of Doritos, hot Cheetos, whatever people love these days. I don't buy that stuff anyway, but just whatever it is that gets your goat and you know that you have a hard time. Now, this is kind of funny. I'm going to tell you this, but so the other day, my husband and I, we were eating we eat these like grain-free tortilla chips. So instead of corn, they're grain-free ones. And some of you have probably seen those. They're really good. And I said, I never look at, because I teach people how to get in touch with how they feel. Like, we don't do calories. We don't do counting of anything. It's intuitive eating. So I don't look at numbers a lot unless I have to get to protein numbers for athletes, which becomes really important. And so I said, let me see that bag. Cause I realized we were both sitting there with our like main food and then like kind of having these chips as like a side.
Right.
But we were eating them out of the bag.
As your main.
Yeah, as the main. And they kept kind of coming. I mean, I'm watching him and I said, wait, let me see these. And I checked out the carbohydrate and I checked out the serving size, and it was like 9 chips for one serving. Right. And I said to him, oh my gosh, babe, we probably both just had like 3 servings. And it was this whole new awareness. And I'm a nutrition educator. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
But we both were doing this unaware thing when we pulled this particular bag of chips out. And this is when we buy weekly. So
Right.
once or twice a week, we're doing this. So this was our remedy. We got, I'm looking to see if I have any up here. I'm a big fan of reusing. So I got like jars. Anytime food comes in a jar that's like this big, little jars, glass jars, because try not to buy plastic anymore. And what I did was we counted out literally 9 chips and put it in. We have all these jars with 9 chips. I mean, this was like a fun project for us, but it allowed the kids to also see. My son now calls it his toddler size serving. Now they can have more than that because they're burning that off, but he and I aren't.
Yeah.
And it is our job to be lean. I mean, this is what we do, our physicality is what we do for a living. So we're just looking at each other like, how did we let this one pass? But that's what I'm saying about getting aware and then creating a new system that will set you up. I'm going to tell you one more because I get really excited about these systems. I love systems. So now we buy the bag. It used to be gone in like 2 days after buying a bag. Now we're portioning these out, and now we just grab our little jar and we die laughing about it because we know what we used to eat. And so the other system I came up with was if you setting up your supplements. I know for me, staying on my supplement routine also helps me feel energized, vibrant, and vital. Mm-hmm. So I was finding myself being really lazy about supplements at the beginning of this thing. Like I didn't want to, but then I got these things online where I could set up a week in advance. So I bought 4 of them. So on Sunday, my husband and I sit, and every week we set up, the kids. I created a spreadsheet of what everybody's on right now. And sometimes they change because sometimes supplements change. But then every week we fill the whole week up. And then every day we pull out the one day. And I know it sounds silly, and maybe some of you have probably already thought of this. It's not like this is genius level thinking here, but it is systems for me and what I see work for my kids, my family, my people I love. Systems help us get through times like this where they're kind of uncertain, and we know that we can always default to our systems.
That's so valuable because, and my next question as we're wrapping up here, Anita, was I think you pretty much answered it unless you have any other kind of steps, but just I love our audience to have some tangible takeaways that could maybe help them with some of the common problems. That is one, like you said, it's not being aware of just how we're just eating and what we're putting in our mouths at any given time. We actually might need to just take a moment and plan out our day. So what I'm hearing you say is, just as you would with your work, just as you would with your schedule, with your kids, figure out a schedule and a system for the food that you put in your mouth. Why not? You're right, and you're right. You say it's not genius level, but I think it's neglected by most people. They take it for granted, or they just associate eating with another trigger in their life, which is now, for some people, completely changed. So we might need to now take extra care and notice of when we're eating and how much we're eating. So I saw what you're saying in that system is we're looking at portion control as well. So the kind of food. Okay, so setting up a system, and you gave us a really good example of how you can do that. I'm curious to know as well, you said supplements. Is there 1 or 2 or 3 supplements that you recommend you must have?
Yes. I would suggest that everyone get on a vitamin D3 supplement. For sure. And fish oils, if you are not a vegan or a vegetarian, or if you're a pescatarian, if you can have fish oils, I would do with fish for omega-3s also. All of those help enhance mood, and they all play a role in hormones and mood production and energy. So those are really important. I think magnesium is also a highly overlooked problem in our culture. It's definitely a common deficiency. So magnesium, taking that at night is helpful to help the body relax and recover, repair, restore. So magnesium in the evening, and then vitamin D and fish oils. If I had to just pick 3, vitamin C is probably a really good one for this time also, because there is some evidence showing that it helps fight this virus. So, but the best chance you're going to have of fighting a virus like this is just like with any virus. I don't find this much different from other viruses. It's just viruses can be aggressive. Some are a little more than others, and some are aggressive in different areas of the body. So you want to fight a virus, the best chance to give your body would be vitamin A and D. Vitamin A and D are the two great viral fighters. And then we also have C is to help. It's not going to fight the virus, but it's going to help keep, if you feel like you're getting sick, it's not going to quite help at that point, but it's good for maintenance before and after.
Anita, which foods can we find those in most readily?
So my favorite, so I teach something called my Power Plate formula for mealtime success. I actually trademarked it and everything. And that is on the Power Plate is a huge section for greens, green leafy vegetables. So the green leafy vegetables are going to have all kinds of those in particular vitamins. But we also have to get D and A come from meat and can come from animal products. So that can make it tricky if you're a vegetarian or vegan. You have to really be intentional if you are choosing to eliminate any one food group, and you have to understand what's needed if you are eliminating anything in particular.
Thank you. You answered my next question about food for immunity, because this is this particular situation we're faced with right now is we want to make sure that our immune system is at its most optimal to fight off any we should anyway, but especially now. So thanks for that little insight. Before
we hang up, can I show you a couple things?
Let's do it. Yeah, more takeaways.
This is always the best way to teach people for me, because I personally am a visual learner too. So here's a great day of eating. This is I would call this a darn near perfect day with food. So here you may have a couple eggs. Now your amounts are going to vary based on your size and your hunger levels and your activity levels. But in general, here's some eggs with some potatoes and some vegetable under there and some avocado. Here's some quinoa with chicken and veg. And then we have this was one of my athletes in particular who could have dairy products. We have a yogurt with some almond butter on a banana. And then we have here is some meat with I think there's some, there's sweet potatoes under there. And then also some other, looks like some peppers and some avocado. And then we have some jerky, beef jerky, and an apple to finish out the day with what I call these mini meals, not snacks. We call them mini meals because it's a smaller version of the big one. Right. It's not a free for all to just jump into a bag of pretzels.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I thought that would be nice to just at least show what I would consider a great day of eating. I could even add in some more greens to that day to make it really optimal.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and it makes me feel good that I'm kind of on the right track there just looking at those meals. So that's well done me. That's good. So many great things in there for us to take away, and obviously people can get hold of you. How can we support you in your mission to just make people healthier through food?
Yeah, I have, two ways. If you are an athlete or have any kids that are athletes, you might want to join my free Facebook group called Fuel, Compete, Repeat, the Fuel, Compete, Repeat community. Wow. But if you're more looking for wellness and maybe weight maintenance, that type of adult, then it would be the Fit from Food movement, which is on Facebook. Free support groups.
That's a gift for everyone. I mean, everything you've shared today is a gift. We just got thousands of dollars worth of knowledge, boom, just downloaded straight from, just like that. Well, I think we could, I want to just keep going and going and going. I have so many questions, and maybe this could be a part one, and we'll save it for part two. But Anita, I'm going to let you go, and thank you once again for sharing your knowledge, your experience. You are literally a champion, and thank you for sharing that champion knowledge as well. It's been an absolute pleasure and so much fun as always.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. This is great.
All right, well, that's it for this episode, folks. Thank you all for joining us. No doubt. I'm confident that you got so many golden nuggets of information that you can apply immediately and start eating healthier, especially during this coronavirus pandemic. Be well, be safe, and I'll see you the next episode.